Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post game live. And I emphasize the word post because my goodness me, what a performance from the Warriors rookie. A career high 20 points, 5 of 10 3-point shooting in less than 20 minutes of action. One of the most exciting performances of the Golden State season. And given all the disappointment and frustration from fans, including myself over recent weeks, to have a performance like this is truly special and exciting and just what the fan base needed. And not only Quinten, but Gui Santos as well. I cannot believe I'm sitting here on it's January 24 for me, but January 23, let's say, for those of you in America, the date of which this game is played. I cannot believe I'm sitting here right now saying that Quinten Post and Gui Santos were the two best players in a 25-point Warrior blowout victory against a team that is not good, but they're not bad either. They're kind of dangerous. The Chicago Bulls got out to a 20-6 lead in the opening minutes of this game, and after last night's disappointing loss to the Sacramento Kings, I thought, all right, here we go again. The Warriors are going to get walloped again on their home floor. And then all of a sudden, Post, Santos lead a bench unit that have 83 points, set a franchise record for most threes off the bench. They had 18. Post and Santos both had 5 each. Moses Moody added 4. Just an unbelievable performance from that duo. And there are so many storylines emanating from this game. So I'm going to get into your guys' comments and we'll go along here over the next half an hour, 40 minutes or so. GSW says, just what I've been wanting, the Quinten Post minutes. I was skeptical. I was very skeptical. When the guy entered at the start of the second quarter yesterday, obviously, unfortunately, I wasn't able to do a post-game live after yesterday's game, but I watched it in full. And when he entered at the start of the second quarter, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is surprising. I'm excited. I said after the post-game live following the Celtics, I was like, I enjoy watching this guy play. I enjoy watching all young guys play because I'm interested and fascinated to see what they can become in this league and what they can do for this Warrior team. And so I'm always interested and excited to watch him play, but I was surprised that he got, first half minutes, and they were brief. I think he only played 3 or so minutes, and then he got even more minutes in the second half, and it got to the point where he and Guy played well enough to be part of the Golden State closing lineup, which is just extraordinary, and it was good to see, and it was a good experience for them, but I also left that thinking, well, when you're playing a rookie center and a second-year forward in a closing lineup against seasoned veterans like DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis. Like, you're never going to win that game down the stretch. The Warriors did have it tied with 1:45 to go, and then got outscored 10-4 after that. And again, when you're closing with guys like that and a guy like Buddy Hield, you're not necessarily expected to win. So it was an exciting performance from those two guys yesterday. But ultimately, the Warriors didn't come away with the win, and that's ultimately what we're looking for. But this game, to win like they did, for those guys to contribute like they did, I was skeptical of the Quinten Post minutes and whether he could hold up defensively. And Steve just said in the post-game press conference that during his time in the G League, that's something the coaching staff's really been working on with him, is his like pick and roll defense and stuff like that. And from what we've seen here, now he's going to come up against, better big men, and he's going to have much harder opposition than what he's faced necessarily, in this game. But he's handled himself pretty well on the defensive end of the floor. And then offensively, to have a guy who's 7 foot tall who can just stand out on the perimeter and take advantage of the gravity that Steph pulls, and to be able to knock down a 3, and not just knock down a 3, but the guy's just taking them. Like, he took 10 threes in 20 minutes of game time. It's absolutely extraordinary, and it's so refreshing for the Warriors to have a guy like that when for so long we've seen Kevon Looney and Trace Jackson Davis, and even before them, go back to a guy, Andrew Bogut was great, and shout out Australian Andrew Bogut. But all these guys, Festus Ezeli is now on the broadcast. Now, whoever you want to go back to, it doesn't matter. Like, all these guys who just do not stretch the floor. And so whenever they get the ball at the top of the arc, they're just looking for dribble handoffs or going into a second action. And to have a guy who's actually like, hang on, I'm open here, I'm going to take it. It's so refreshing to see and just unbelievable. Like, I cannot say enough for how surprisingly good and exciting that performance was from Quinten Post. And again, Gui Santos shouldn't go under the radar either. 19 points, 5 of 6 from 3-point range. And this is becoming a thing now with Gui. Like, what did he go? Was he 4 or 5 yesterday against the Kings? He's broke his career high in back-to-back games. Now, like, this is not an out-of-the-box performance. This is Gui Santos now having a really good stretch of games, shooting the ball brilliantly from 3-point range. And it's not just that you've got two young guys. This is the point I really want to emphasize. And I'm sorry, I'll get back to your comments in a second. The point I really want to emphasize is not that the Warriors have got two young guys who have just delivered out-of-the-box performances. It's that they've got two young guys who've delivered out-of-the-box performances in positions they desperately need, in roles they desperately need. Okay? If I had to look at the Warrior roster right now and said, what are the two things the Warriors desperately need? To me, it's, and I've spoken about this incessantly, it's a stretch big who can rebound, maybe defend a little bit, and just most importantly, stretch the floor. And secondly, would probably be like another Wiggins type, another 6'7", 6'8" guy, reasonable athlete, but most importantly, can knock down 40% of his threes, can defend at a reasonable level, right? They're the two things the Warriors need. And in Gui Santos and Quinten Post, that's exactly what they've got. Gui Santos is 6'8", okay, making all the hustle plays, rebounding hard, had 7 rebounds in this game, and doing all the little things. But not only that, he's actually demonstrating pretty significant skill in terms of, hey, I'm a pretty good three-point shooter. I was watching the Bulls broadcast, right? Now, I'm not sure what's going on with the Warriors broadcast at the moment. Maybe it's just me. But, like, there's something going on where the on-court mics or something aren't working to me. Like, I can only hear really Fitz and Kalena on the broadcast, and I can't really hear, like, the on-court mic stuff. It's a bit weird. So I was watching the Bulls. I was listening to the Bulls broadcast, and they were like just going nuts over Gui Santos and Quinten Post and saying, okay, these guys need to be on the scouting report for the teams coming up and stuff like that the Warriors will face. So to have a guy who's 6'8" like Gui, who rebounds hard, who battles hard defensively. He had a couple of really nice, I know DeRozan went for 32 points and was pretty big for the Kings yesterday, but Gui had a couple of nice moments on him defensively, I thought, where he was really he stood down, like he stayed down on the pump fakes, which DeRozan often gets defenders with. Contested when he needed to. And again, I know DeRozan went off in the end, but I thought Gui had a couple of nice defensive possessions, which told me, hey, this guy's got something defensively. And obviously shooting the ball at an incredible rate. And then Quinten Post is 7 foot tall, knocking down threes like he's Dirk Nowitzki. I tweeted out, jokingly, obviously, but like someone needs to tell Karl Anthony Towns he's no longer the best shooting big man of all time. Because this guy's here, Quinten Post, taking 10 threes in 20 minutes and knocking down half of them. It's unbelievable. Let me get back to your guys' comments here. Priscilla said, I love it when the bench does good. Yeah, 83 bench points. Huge. And Moses Moody as well deserves a shout out. That's his 5th straight game, I think, with double-digit points. And he's looking confident on the 3 ball. And I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to me, the starting lineup moving forward, because obviously the starting lineup didn't necessarily work in this game either. They went down 20-6. Gary Payton's second, no real impact. Buddy Hield, no real impact. Wiggins was fine. Steph was fine. Trace. They've got this weird thing going on with the center spot now over the last 2 games where, like, Loon started yesterday against Sabonis, but then he was out in the second half, and Trace started the second half. And then Trace started the game today, and then Loon started the second half. And then all the while, you've also got this Quinten Post stuff going on, and he's actually almost playing more minutes than both of those guys. So it's bizarre. FTW Clan says posting Gui. Yeah, that's all you need to say. GSO says Pods had a good game. Yes, for a first game back after missing 12 games with that abdominal injury, I think he couldn't have asked for much more than Pods. The 3-point shooting, he made a couple there, which suggests to me he was, I think in his like 9 games prior to injury, he was like 48.7% from 3-point range. So pretty critical, obviously, for him to start knocking down his shots, particularly when like they've got Schroeder coming off the bench now as well, which is another talking point that I'm sure we'll get to. Like Pods is going to be more off the ball, so his ability to knock down those catch and shoot threes is really important. The Warriors had 7 players in double figures in this game, including Schroeder and Podziemski. Pods, 10 points, 4 of 6, 2 of 4 from 3, 4 rebounds, a couple of assists, a steal, took a charge early on in his first few minutes, which kind of typified his return, obviously. There's not many guys that take charges on this Warrior team, but Brandon Podziemski certainly does. And look at the bench plus minus. Looney a plus 17, Santos plus 31, Moody plus 33, Schroeder plus 27, Post plus 13, Podziemski plus 22. So the bench just really got it done for the Warriors in this game. Sai says, hi, mate. Good to see you. Post should legit get some more minutes, especially when we play on road with big teams. I mean, he has to. He has to. And Steve said now afterwards, after this game, that Quinten Post and Gui Santos have his trust. But of course, like, you're gonna have Draymond and Kuminga coming back. Kyle Anderson's gonna come back as well. So this is the thing. Like, you have these two guys who are literally, without a doubt, like, I know you could say, Steph's certainly part of it. He had a team high 21 points, but like, Gui Santos and Quinten Post were like the best two players for the Warriors in this game. And they're guys that have played a combined 15 games this season. Like, they've been out of the rotation the entire season. So the Warriors, Steve's had question marks over the rotation the entire season. And now you've got the two guys that haven't been in the rotation performing like this. Where does that leave the Warriors in terms of the rotation, in terms of when Draymond and Kuminga eventually come back, in terms of what happens here over the next fortnight now before the trade deadline? Like, I don't know. It's some serious question marks going on over this team, and good ones to have. I'm not saying there, when you say question marks, you think, oh, that's a bad thing. And there are certainly some legitimate question marks that are concerning, but with these performances like Quinten Post and Gui Santos, now you have some like good question marks where it's like, okay, these guys need to play, but how are you going to fit them in? What's their role moving forward when the Warriors have a healthier rotation? And it's going to be up and down. Like, Quinten Post is not going to have performances like that. He's going to have games where he doesn't shoot the ball well from 3, where he gets, abused a little bit, perhaps defensively. He comes up against the Lakers. What happens when LeBron James is going at him downhill on Saturday? What happens when he's battling Anthony Davis in the post? Okay, we'll wait and see what happens. Like, he's going to have tough outings, but like, those guys, not only are they, not only have they played really well in this game, but as I said before, like, their skill set, their size, like, that's what the Warriors desperately need on this roster. And so they're actually, particularly Post, like, Post is completely unique. The Warriors do not have another guy like him. And Santos, like, who else is 6'7", 6'8", who can shoot 40% from 3? Wiggins? And like, Moody's 6'6", maybe. Maybe you can say Moody. Like, there's only a couple there on the whole roster. Sai says, Gui Santos, what a player, what energy. Thenix says 83 bench points. So we had a center all along, but Kerr's been hiding him in the G League. Yeah, I think I think you could give some credit to the franchise here for the development. And if you go back to the preseason, Quinten Post did not look like a rotation player in the preseason. He looked far away. And the fact he's reached this point where he's having 20 points in a game in January, I am legitimately shocked. Now, you guys as fans, you can say, oh, we saw this out of Quinten Post in college, and, coming in, like, we expected him. He's had 5 years of college experience. He's 24 years old. He was always going to be able to play a role for the Warriors. If you want to say that, fine. But honestly, if you watch the guy during preseason, there's no way you could sit there and say this guy should be a rotation player. So I think the franchise probably does deserve a little bit of credit for, letting him go into the G League for a little bit. He's had multiple, I think, what did I say the other day? He had 3 games of at least 29 points in a 5-game span. Like, not only did he go to the G League, but he really built his confidence and started dominating at that level, to the point where once you start dominating at that level, the transition from the G League to the NBA isn't as much as, having a guy who has come straight into the NBA without any G League experience, who, again, is a second-round pick like Quinten Post, or who's not particularly dominating at the G League level, and you just throw him out there anyway as an experiment. Like, this is an experiment to a degree, no doubt, but it's also like, hey, this guy has been putting up huge numbers in the G League. Like, it's also warranted. So it's certainly fascinating. Sandex says Santos should not have been benched in the third quarter against the Kings. We wouldn't have blown the lead. It's a good point. Berserk Monk says Curry is still starting with Buddy and GP too. Yeah, like, those guys. So really watching this game, I'm really fascinated to see what happens with the starting lineup. So I think the first thing is Post plays 20 minutes in this game. Looney plays 18 and a half. Jackson Davis plays less than 10 minutes, even though he started. That's pretty notable that TJD played less than 10 minutes and like they went away from him basically in the second half. So what's going to happen there? Like, is it, this is going to sound pretty blasphemous, but is it a big step to say, like, could Quinten Post be starting for this team soon? I know that sounds super weird and maybe I'm going way too early, but like, and I think I am. I think, realistically, I'm going way too early. Like, he's had one 20-point game, fantastic, great, but it's one performance, right? We need it. Like, you need to see that consistently off the bench before he steps into a starting role, or we even consider that as a possibility. But like, you look at a game like today and you think, and it's not just that, but it's like what Steve said about Steph after the game and saying that Steph's like the happiest guy in the building because he's got this 7-foot guy who can run pick and roll, or not pick and roll, but pick and pop. And he can, he gets double teamed. He can chuck it up to the top of the arc. And this guy's just firing away and making them from downtown. And talking about the impact that this rookie is having on Steph and Curry. So I don't know. At what point do we have that conversation? And the other thing is with Santos and Moody. So I just don't think the Warriors moving Schroeder back to the bench is probably the right move, but who starts at the 2 guard moving forward now? I suppose if you're willing to start Post, then maybe you could also start Kuminga, and it could be like Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Green, Post. Maybe they still end up trading for Vucevic. It's really, Vucevic did not play well in this game, but I almost think that the way Post played is almost showcasing further that, like, okay, getting Vucevic might be still a good option. Like, if Post is scoring 20 points in this offense, what could Vucevic do? So that's interesting. I don't think, like, and again, I was watching the Bulls broadcast and they were critical of the fact that Chicago just did not get Vucevic involved in the game whatsoever. And he had one of his worst performances of the season, 9 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 of 9 shooting, just wasn't involved in the offense. And he needs to be involved in the offense to be a productive and good, beneficial player for you. And so if Quinten Post is putting up 10 threes in 20 minutes off the bench, what could Vucevic do? That's the question mark there. So if it's not a stretch 5, could you actually start, legitimately, could you start Gui Santos and say, all right, we're going to go bigger with Steph, Wiggins, Gui, Draymond, and TJD or Loon, whoever, probably TJD still. I don't know. But is it that 5? And Gui Santos is already, like, all of a sudden a starter for you, or Moody? Because I've always thought Moody was probably the best option in theory because of that 3-and-D skill set. Maybe it's Gui Santos instead. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. When this rotation comes back, hopefully at some point fully healthy with Green and Kuminga coming back, what's the starting lineup look like? And of course, it's going to also be dependent on what happens before the trade deadline here. Berserk Monk says, enrolling them in the third 2 in reference to Buddy and GP2, who were both poor, again, it must be said. Peyton had went 1 of 3, made 1 3 in the third quarter, 3 points, 2 rebounds, was a -16 in 11 minutes. Not good for Gary Payton second. And Buddy, 1 of 7. Like, the Warriors made heaps of threes. They were 25 of 57, 43.9% in this game. And Buddy Hield goes 0 of 5. 3 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Had a nice block on Giddey in the third quarter, which shocked me. But aside from that, pretty negative again from him. Zendex says, we weren't just chucking threes, we actually got in the paint. Yeah, I agree with that. I thought Schroeder actually played pretty well, I must say, and Steve mentioned it in the post game as well. I know he didn't shoot the ball well, 4 of 11, 1 of 4, but seems like if he's also got a pick and pop option out there, and Steph mentioned it after the Kings game yesterday, like, that'll help him a little bit as well. Like I tweeted out a clip. I took it off my laptop, so it wasn't a high def clip by any means, but it was when Schroeder made a layup in transition in the third quarter in the Kings game yesterday, and Post was spotting up in the corner, and Sabonis just was attached to him and did not come off him whatsoever. And Schroeder just blew by his man for a layup. And I was like, okay, here's what a stretch 5 brings you. Like, the opposing big man is completely out of the paint. If that's TJD or Loon, Sabonis is just hanging around the paint, ready to be the help defender on that drive from Schroeder. And yet he's attached to Post, who at that point had made, I think, 2 career 3-pointers. And he was still attached to him, and Schroeder got a layup out of it. So it's interesting. Sorry, just trying to get through your comments here. I'll try and get through them a bit more quicker here. Sai says one of Kerr's bizarre decisions. I think that's in relation to Santos in the third quarter yesterday. Jumbo says Post and Gui Santos should get all of Dre, GP2, and Looney's minutes. All of it. Draymond Green. I'm not sure we're going that far. I think Draymond's still the second or third best player on this team, you'd imagine. Berserk Monk says, this is why a lot of us were clamoring for the marketing deal to get done. Yes, good point. Me too, included in that. Not to toot my own horn, but, you can go back and listen to my podcast episodes from back in August or late July when that deal was possibly on the table. And I said, hey, this is what marketing can do for you, exactly what Post is doing now. Like, marketing's even better because not only can it be involved in pick and pop actions, you can run that guy off screens like he's Klay Thompson and he's 7 foot tall. So, yeah. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. It actually would because marketing's now on over $40 million and he hasn't necessarily had a great year. But it wouldn't surprise me if he's available again in the offseason. Just putting that out there. And it would be harder because obviously you got to match salaries and it'd be more difficult. But maybe that's a possibility again. Then says, we didn't defend the perimeter well in the first half, but the whole second half, Bulls shot 1 3-pointer. Yeah, they made 1 3. The contrast in 3-point shooting in the second half was that was the difference in the game. The Warriors, so again, just to give an outline to people who might not have watched the game. So the Warriors were down 20-6 in a big hole, and I thought, oh God, here we go again. They pulled it back. They were down 3, I think, at the end of the first. Zach LaVine had a big second quarter, went for 14. Bulls still led by 1 at halftime, and then the Warriors just came out and outscored them 68-42 in the second half. And they really got on a roll late in the third quarter, ended up heading to the fourth with a 14-point lead. And I was still a bit nervous because, the Warriors with a double-digit lead, not necessarily too trustworthy, but they put the game to bed pretty quickly and it allowed Steph to rest over the final 6-7 minutes there, which was good. Sorry, just trying to keep up with the comments. Berserk Monk says, more polished Reed to play 7-foot stretch 4 or 5. Sai says, Imo, in my opinion, they overestimated Pot's ceiling. They should have got it done. That's in relation to the marketing deal. I tend to agree. Then Nick says, JK and Dre are yet to come in. I hope Kerr can bring them in without messing things up. It's crazy how you could talk about, Draymond Green. Hope he doesn't mess things up when he comes back in. But, you got a point. And I'm actually interested to see, I think that trio, that Kuminga, Green, Post trio, to me might be a bit fascinating, or at least 2 of those guys together. Because that's the other thing that we haven't necessarily seen. So now we're seeing what Post can do for Steph and what Post can do for Schroeder, like the point guards, like having a guy there who can, once Steph gets double teamed, can actually take advantage and drill a 3. But what about Kuminga? What about his athleticism? And guys can't stay in front of him. Okay. And if they do, he's just too big and strong anyway. He'll finish over them. So what does a guy like Quinten Post do for Jonathan Kuminga? Now, my only hesitancy to that is they're both real young guys. And that tends to make me think that, hey, are they actually going to be if you play those 2 guys together for lengthy stints, are they really going to contribute to winning? I have real question marks on that. But just the idea of this guy who's pretty unstoppable going to the rim and pretty hard to defend. And we've seen him average 25 points over his last 6 games prior to injury. And he had a big stretch last season where he averaged 20 points. And that was without a stretch 5. That's with playing alongside a Looney or a TJD whose opponent, the other center, doesn't have to guard them beyond the restricted circle, basically beyond the paint. And therefore, a lot of these times, Kuminga's on the drive. He's having to go against the help defender. Well, what happens now if Quinten Post's out there and that help defender's out 20 feet from the basket? So that's what I'm fascinated to see here and what I'm looking forward to see if this Post stuff continues which it looks like it might, unless the Warriors went out and got Vucevic or someone else before the deadline. So it's going to be fascinating to see, because it's helped Steph already. It's helped Schroeder already. What does it do for Jonathan Kuminga? I think it could be pretty big. Jamu says, with Post, don't even know about Vucevic anymore. Post is 7 foot, Vuce is 6'10". Post average shot 43% on threes in college last 2 years. Vuce is 34%. I'll take Post. Well, I mean, you look at a game like this and you think, yeah, like, why? You've got Quinten Post, and you got to remember, this guy's on a 2-way contract. He's not even on the main. Like, if the Warriors were in a playoff game tomorrow, Quinten Post couldn't play, right? He's not eligible. He's on a 2-way contract. And if he was, which is based on this performance, is a genuine possibility, if he was to get converted to a standard contract here, which the Warriors, they might be worth just getting him on a standard deal here and just quickly doing a little TJD-like deal with 3 or 4 year contract, less than $2 million a year. Could be pretty worthwhile based on what we've just seen. But why would you go and get Vucevic on $20 million when you've got Quinten Post on less than $2 million? Where's like the value there is clearly with Quinten. Now, I'm not going to take this one game and say that, Quinten Post is a better player than Nikola Vucevic and that, he's more valuable right now. I still think you could have both. Honestly, I still think you could have both. You could probably play, maybe Vooch for 23, 25 minutes, maybe Quinten for 10 to 15, and maybe Trace is still around for 10 to 15. And you could probably have, and that would eliminate Draymond's small ball center lineups, which is probably good for his longevity. And I'm assuming, like a Vucevic trade, Looney's probably involved in it, so he's no longer on the team. Yeah, I don't know. You make, and I think the college stuff is important. It's not like this guy's just coming out and he's never made a 3 before and he's just made 5 threes in an NBA game. Like, this guy, as you said, did shoot 43% in college last season. So, like, there is some history there. It's a shock performance. Like, you can't tell me it's not a shock performance. But as you say, 43% in college last season. This guy is noted as a 3-point shooter. We just haven't seen it at the NBA level until literally the last 48 hours. Berserk Monk says, the win was good. We needed it, but we got to keep in mind the Bulls are the second worst defense in the league above the Wizards. Yeah, good. I still think I don't want to underrate the win too much, because Chicago, as I said before, they're not good, but they're also not bad, and they're pretty dangerous. Like, they've beaten some good teams this season. So to beat them by 25, particularly after a 26 start, like, that's a 39-point turnaround from halfway through the first quarter, essentially. It's impressive, particularly with the outs of the Warriors. And I also want to compliment. I know they lost yesterday, and they conceded an 18-point lead. But I thought we played pretty well yesterday. I was pretty happy with that performance. Someone asked me afterwards, said, the Warriors win today. I said, no, but they actually played better than I thought they would. Like, I was actually pretty happy with that performance, even though they lost and they probably should have won. Berserk Monk says, Vooch has also regressed these last 11, 10, 12 games. Now, I've been keeping a tab, especially in his 3-point shot. He only took 2 tonight, though. I think he didn't want his stats to look worse towards us. You reckon that was a factor? You reckon he's like, I don't want to go 1 of 6 and turn these guys off from potentially trading me. Look, he had his 40 point outing in the last 11, 12. Like, when did he have that? I'm just going to look at his numbers here, because he had that 40-point game like last week, didn't he? He's still over 20 points and 10 rebounds on the season. Some of his effort tonight I thought was poor, and that's probably the biggest thing for me. Like, some of the defensive stuff, a couple of times the Warriors were able to get offensive rebounds, and I thought, if he was on the Warriors doing that right now, I wouldn't be too happy. He had 40 points against Charlotte on January 7th, like a week ago. Less than a week ago. 17 of 25, 2 of 6, and he had 17 points in the fourth quarter in that game too. You're probably right. Like, his last few games, he had a 10-point game. He's now at a 9-point game. His last 3 games have been 17, 14, and now 9. So generally, and he had a 14 before that 40-point game. So generally, his numbers are on the decline a little bit, but that 40-point game still sticks out. He still had a 22 and a 23-point game here in the last 10 games, 24, 22. So he's still somewhat consistent, but you might have a point. Jamu says, Berserk Monkey, you are right. I don't trust 1 year worth of stats. Vooch has averaged 32% on threes the last 3 years. Good point. But at the same time, if that's the case, I don't necessarily want to trust Quinten Post going 5 of 10 in an NBA game either, and just say that's going to take that as gospel of moving forward. That's what we're going to see. So I know Post, as you said, shot over 40% in college the last 2 years. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a wait and see game now, but I'm very excited nonetheless. Berserkman says, at least now we have an okay center rotation with 3 options depending on matchup. 0 excuses for Kerr to run Draymond at the 5 now. Well, the thing is, like, if you're going to have Draymond at the 4, then that should open up Post playing even more minutes. Because that's the thing, like, you actually, at this point in the season, with Draymond and Kuminga out, and Gui Santos and Moses Moody both playing a lot of power forward minutes and as guys who can shoot, that should mean that you should actually be getting away with having TJD and Loon more, right? So it's really interesting that this Quinten Post thing is developing and kind of being unearthed here while Draymond and Kuminga are out of the lineup, because when those guys come back, it actually then makes even more sense that he should get more minutes from that perspective. So again, it's going to be interesting. Jeremy says, Quinten Post is the only 7-footer we have. We almost don't have a choice. He deters a lot of shots inside being that tall. Yeah, like, again, I think, like, he blocked 1 shot today. You know, I'm not sure he's ever going to be a huge shot blocker, but again, the size is a presence. And I've been, you know, Javon Carter hit a couple of threes over him late in the game, but I thought he actually defended them okay. Like, Carter hit the shots, but I was like, he put his hand up. He didn't let him blow by him. Like, I thought that was actually pretty good. Sometimes the guy just makes the shot. So, yeah, the defense has been better than what I thought it was going to be. And he's not necessarily a great athlete, but he makes, the other thing I think that's going underrated is some of his passing. Like, he makes pretty quick decisions, and obviously in the read and react motion warrior offense, that's really important. And so we're all salivating over the 3-point shooting, and rightly so. But it's also worth mentioning, like, he's a little bit more than that. Like, he got an and one layup or whatever at the end there in the garbage time. Like, he rebounds the ball reasonably well. Again, he makes good decisions. On the rare time that he rolls to the basket, which is rare, like usually he's popping, but on the rare times that he's rolling and the help defense comes over, he's actually pretty good at quickly identifying where the next pass needs to go in terms of, you know, out to the wing or the corner, wherever it may be. Berserkman says, I still think we start TJD, and I think when the offense bogs down, rolling Gui at the 4 posts at center, JK at the 3, and either Wiggs at 2 or GP2 for defensive purposes with Steph at point. And where's Draymond in all of that? Because that's the other thing as well. I think you're probably right. I don't know. I tell you what, Steve, the way Steve's talking about Quinten Post, the way he's saying, like, this opens up the floor, the way he's talking about what Quinten Post is doing for Steph, it's almost pretty hard to see him going back to, like, Draymond and TJD or Loon. At least for, like, lengthy stretches. It's pretty hard to see that. I don't know. I look at this and I actually still think, like, GP2's okay for certain scenarios. Loon's okay for certain scenarios. But part of me still thinks, okay, can you move those guys and bring in Vucevic still and just have Vucevic and Post? Like, I still think you can have both of them. Now, maybe the need for Vucevic has certainly lessened by what we've seen from Quinten Post, and at a very interesting time too, now that we're 2 weeks out from the deadline. Do you reckon Mike Dunleavy Jr., I don't know, who's the Bulls general manager, whoever it is, do you reckon Mike Dunleavy's just rolling over right now and just having a chat and just saying, hey, yeah, Vucevic, yeah, we've already got him. Did you see that guy tonight? Quinten Post went 5 of 10 from 3. Yeah, we don't really need him. Yeah. Oh, look, we'll take him. If you're happy to take 2 seconds rather than a first, we'll take him, but we don't really need him now. And so it's really, maybe it just helps the Warriors leverage a little bit, because now all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, we don't really need a stretch big now. We've already got one. So I don't know. It's fascinating. Sai says, in order to have that conversation about post starting, they got to test him with various defenses. At least give him 19, 22 minutes a game. Yeah, I agree. Like he's probably still a fair way away from starting, but he could play significant again when Draymond comes back. He could play significant minutes because I've said all along now that like it's pretty difficult to get away with like multiple guys on the floor at one time who just aren't respected from beyond the arc, and that's been the case. Like I know Draymond shot 40%, but he's not respected. Loon and TJD, we know, just aren't offensive threats whatsoever, aside from TJD on the odd, roll to the rim and, finishing sometimes. But okay, I mean, I did laugh yesterday that acrobatic and one layup he made in the second quarter against the Kings. That was stupid because he can't make just a simple open layup at the best of times, and then he's making that absolute BS acrobatic layup. Maybe sometimes gets lob dunks, but obviously doesn't have anything beyond the paint. So I don't know how much you can get away with running those guys, Draymond and one of Loon or TJD. Maybe Post again. Once Draymond comes back, it's almost like he needs to play more. Maybe, I don't know. We're still going to see some Draymond small ball lineups. I feel like we're just still going to see that. But whoever said that before in terms of there's no excuse now, that's a pretty strong point, I think, in terms of, hey, there's optionality here. And maybe they get more optionality even before the deadline via trade. Sai says, I don't know if Kerr starts Post, so he can take a page out of Jason Kidd's book and see how he utilized Derek Lively as a rookie. Agree, different kinds of players. I'm talking about coaching philosophy. Yeah, you don't want to throw a guy to the Wolves unnecessarily early. Like, again, going back to, I think the franchise probably deserves credit for letting him go to the G League, let him build his confidence and development in the G League, and then bring him into the NBA. Now, there is part of it where the Warriors just needed him to play. Like, they just needed a stretch five just to see it. But they also did bring him in at a time where he was having big performances in the G League, and he built his confidence to a point where, say, okay, the transition now might be a lot simpler and more comfortable than what it otherwise would have been. And so, yeah, you don't want to just throw him into the starting lineup and say, you're our new starting center, and put this unnecessary pressure on him. If you can still bring him along in, a 15, 20-minute roll off the bench, you probably want to see that for the rest of the season more so than us expecting him that all of a sudden in 2 weeks' time he's going to be the starting center. Now, there's actually might be a possibility of that, but I still think it's unlikely. Berserk Max says, I think Post is best used against skill bigs that want to hang around the rim, Zubac, Sabonis, just to make their bigs feel uncomfortable having to come out towards the perimeter. It's a really good point. Now, I don't know how Post would necessarily be able to guard those guys. Like Sabonis had 26 and 18 yesterday, so I'm not sure how he would be able to handle those guys on the other end of the floor. But you're right. The issue with the Warriors, like when they come up against those really skilled bigs, is part of the aspect of this is you've got to be able to make those guys work defensively, and the Warriors just don't do that. Like the Warriors, like sometimes they get switched on to Steph, and yeah, okay, that can make them work out on the perimeter. But with Loon and TJD out there, they just don't make that. They can just hang around the paint. All right, they can just hang around the paint and do whatever they want, really. Now with Quinten Post, like they would actually have to come out and try and guard him. And so it opens up a lot, obviously. GSW says Post screens top tier 2, been seeing people getting bodied from him. Yeah, he's given away a couple of offensive fouls on moving screens, but I don't mind that. And ultimately, like, I don't even think the screens need to be that good. Like, he just needs to kind of hold up the perimeter defender enough where the big knows, like, oh, it's Steph coming off the screen. I have to be upright. Like, I just have to be. And therefore, like, it just needs to be an ounce of room. And again, that opposing center is going to be like, okay, it's Steph Curry. I need to guard this. And therefore, true, or now it's Steph. And, you just throw it back to Quinten and he's wide open top of the arc. So I don't even think the screens have to be that good. They just have to be enough. And it's Steph Curry. And he's just him alone is going to have that gravity. Jamu says rotation should be Steph, Wiggs, JK, Gui, and Post. Moody can be swapped for Santos. Dre will likely be injury prone from now on. If Draymond's likely to be injury prone from now on, and you're saying you're not just relying upon, you just can't rely upon him, then you actually have to trade him. And now I don't think that's going to happen. It's not going to happen now. But it's the front court stuff's really interesting because now they've got like a lot of front court guys who can play and they're a little bit different. But like we haven't even talked about Kyle Anderson. Kyle Anderson's not playing at the moment. Where does this leave him? How can Kyle Anderson possibly get minutes? Particularly with Gui Santos, who's like 6'8" and can shoot, right? Where's Kyle Anderson end up? Where's GP2 ending up? Where's like Lindy Waters is now Lindy Waters, apart from garbage time, we're not going to see him ever again. Okay, that guy, no offense, Lindy, you're gone. You are done. Put a fork in you. You're cooked. We're not going to see you again. Right? I honestly think he's done. Lindy Waters the third. You had your big opportunity through the first half of the season. You shot like 32% from three when you're this noted three-point shooter. You had a couple of good games. Great. I think you're done. But he healed. Right? What's happening with you? You're back in the starting role now. I don't think that's a long-term thing whatsoever. And again, I think the Warriors should probably try a bigger lineup, right? Where either Santos or Moody are starting, or maybe Post is the starting center, and that allows you to get away with Kuminga back in the starting lineup. I don't know. Sneaker says Steph Wiggs, Kuminga, Gee, TJD, and play Post 20 minutes. TJD and Loon split minutes depending on the lineup. Moody is a six-man. Trade Draymond if he's unhappy to come off the bench. Time to free Gee and Kuminga. Steph Wiggs, Kuminga, Gee, TJD. I don't hate it. Also, like, there's a lot of young guys here, right? A lot of young guys. And it's been exciting. Kuminga's, before he got injured, was taking elite. Gee and QP have been great. TJD's been better recently, I would say. But again, like, weird that he only played less than 10 minutes. Not weird, but like a little bit concerning for him that he played less than 10 minutes. Moody, 5 straight games of double-digit scoring. So this young guy stuff is actually pretty good and positive. Pods, we haven't really spoken about aside from the start there when I spoke about his return. Had a pretty good game. So the young guys are showing some stuff, which is good. But ultimately, we've still got a 36-year-old Steph Curry. We still want to win games. And so I think Steve's still going to battle with that a little bit and trying to find the right rotations where you're not like chucking 3 young guys out there at the same time, which against a good team could really hurt you. So saying like we're going to start Kuminga, Gee, and TJD together, not sure that's necessarily going to happen. Unless they've just decided, like we're done for the season. Like, we don't really care if we make the playoffs or not. We're just going to see what this can do. Maybe then that's what happens. But if they've got like still legitimate, thought of making the playoffs and trying to win a series or something, then that's like Steve's still going to fight between how many young guys can I have on the floor together at the same time. Berserk Monk says, I think if Post is here to stay and play, we could even pivot and get a true defensive anchor like a Walker Kessler or maybe that Jakob guy from Toronto. That's in reference to Jakob Poeltl. Yeah. Robert Williams. Could I talk you into Robert Williams the third? Because he to me, like, he's an obvious trade candidate for the Trailblazers. And I think he's a player that would certainly be an upgrade from TJD and Loon, I think. But at the same time, I've always thought he's just too similar. Like, he doesn't offer that offensive firepower that the Warriors need from the 5 position. But you are right that if Quinten Post is that stretch 5, then you try and upgrade the TJD Looney spot. Yeah, I don't know. What I will say is the Warriors are in a good position. If I'm not out on TJD at all. Like, I still think TJD can be a solid rotation piece for you. I'm not sure he's necessarily going to be a starting player for you on a good team. But you're going to have him under contract for still another 2 years after this at like $4 million total. And if they can get Quinten Post on like a multi-year, like 2 or 3 year deal at like $6-7 million total, then you've got a pretty good like 2-man center rotation there that you're paying like less than $5 million a season to, which is good work. I know the last post-game live I really ripped into Mike Dunleavy Jr., and I think that was deserved. Like, I still think this roster is flawed, but what you can't have a crack at him for is since he's taken over, like, his draft evaluations and the selections he's made with Pods, TJD, and now Post, like, they're that's first class drafting with limited, capacity, obviously, because, Pods was a 19th overall pick, and then TJD and Post were both picks in the 50s. Sneaker Dad says none of our bigs can guard star bigs, so at least Post is positive on offense. Good point. And again, at least makes those opposing guys work on the other end. Berserkman says just play a combo of defensive 4 Dre with a shooting 5 Post or shooting 4 Gui, defensive 5 TJD Luna. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. I think you've got a good point. You need to have that 4-5 combination needs to be a combination of offense and defense. And it's exactly why I'm very hesitant to say Quinten Post is a starter, right? Or could be a starter in a month's time. But part of me actually thinks that that's not entirely off the table, because when Draymond comes back, theoretically, that means that QP should play more, right? And I think you're right. Like, maybe off the bench, it's Gui Santos at the 4 and TJD or Loon at the 5. You're exactly right. Jummish says, in response to Sneaker Dad, I like that lineup. Also, swapping Post for TJD will help situationally. Dre can be a head case, unfortunately. Don't like that pool talk yesterday. He should let it go. Yeah, I won't get into that too much, but yeah, I tend to agree. I think Draymond tell JP to like just get over it, move on. It's like, bro, you're the one that keeps talking about it. Like, I think you need to take your own advice. Berserk Monk says, and Draymond's calf strain is no joke. Look at Luka. He's missed a ton of time already with the calf strain, and that type of injury can linger. Yeah, I just don't think the Warriors have done a good job managing Draymond in terms of asking him to play so many small ball minutes. They went through a period there where Loon was like pretty much out of the rotation. TJD was playing like 15 to 20 minutes, and then like half the game was either Draymond or Kyle Anderson as a small ball 5, essentially. Jamie says, and Dre's also got degenerative disc disease of his spine, which will only get worse. Trust me, I'm a physician. Okay. Sneaker Dad says, I don't like Draymond starting because Kerr's offense, Draymond initiates offense too much. I want Steph to be the real point guard, run the offense. Again, good point. I don't know, like, what do we do with Draymond then? Do we bring him off the bench? Okay, I have thought about that before. Yeah, I think he could come off the bench, and therefore that allows Kuminga to be a starter and for him to thrive. And we had that conversation when he did, Draymond was like a bench player for one game, and Steve said, yeah, we're going to put Draymond to the bench and we're going to start Kuminga, and it lasted like a game. And then Draymond was straight back in there. So I don't know. What are we going to do? It's all something. It's everything we're going to find out here over the coming weeks, as the deadline approaches, and whenever Draymond comes back here, it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be interesting to see like just what happens with the starting lineup in general here, because so Gui got the start in the second half over GP2, didn't he? So it was like Steph, Hield, Wiggins, Santos, TJD, and again, like TJD played less than 10 minutes. So like they play the Lakers on Saturday. What's the starting lineup? God, I don't know. Like, should Moody also start? Should it be like Steph, Moody, Wiggins, Gui, and TJD? I don't know. Ghost says if you start Post, you go with the big lineup with JK, Wiggs, Dre, Steph. But if you don't start Post, I would go with Steph, Moody, Wiggs, Dre, TJD, and have JK as a 6-man. Even though he's not really a 6-man. Yep, I completely agree with you there. JK is a 6-man, was basically the 6-man in those 6 games before he got injured and was really good. So I don't think it's necessarily, from what it was sounding like before he got injured, JK isn't necessarily too concerned with whether he starts or not. It's how many minutes he plays. So if he's a 6-man, he's still playing 30-plus minutes. I don't think he particularly cares, because he's still going to put up the numbers that suggest that he's going to get a bag in free agency, which is, ultimately, like, we can say whatever we want. The end goal for him is to get a big contract in free agency. Like, that's what it is. And he can say as much about, the team and wanting to win a championship and whatever he wants. Like he's only human. If I was in his situation, I'd be looking at free agency as well and saying, you know what? I want to get him $150 million. I don't blame the guy for that. I'd be thinking the same thing. Berserk Monk says, Moody can't really play the 2, though. He cannot keep guards in front of him, unfortunately. Yeah, well, like, you've still got Wiggins. You got a point. His like lateral quickness isn't great, but maybe with weird like what Buddy Hield's in that spot at the moment. Like we're saying, Buddy Hield's a great defender. Like is Moses Moody like a huge defensive downgrade from Buddy Hield? Wouldn't have thought so. Ghost says, and have Pods, Schroeder, Gee, Buddy, Kyle, Loon, Post in the rotation in each given night. Everyone else shouldn't see minutes unless like it's GP2 if he's needed for a specific guard on any given night. God, we're back to a situation where like there's just so many guys. Like Steve went to 11 guys in this game, and obviously Slow-Mo and Draymond and JK are still out. So that's like 14 guys. And so who in the rotation in this game are you actually taking out? Okay, GP2. All right, that still leaves you with 13 guys. You're not playing 13 guys. So I suppose you can always say like some guys are always like there's always going to be unavailability that's going to have, 2 or 3 guys out at any given point. But man, if anything like these, the other thing with these Gui Santos, Quinten Post performances, like, okay, maybe you do really need to make a consolidation trade because like those guys can play. We've just seen those guys can legit play. So does that mean you just say Loon, GP2, one of Slow-Mo or Buddy Hield, like that's 3 guys making $25 million. Do we just, why wouldn't you just combine those guys, go get another $20 to $25 million guy, whether it's Vucevic or Cam. You're not going to get Cam Johnson because you'd have to give up like actual first round picks for that. And I don't think the Warriors want to do it. But a guy between 20, 25 million, why wouldn't you do that and go sign Quinten Post to a standard contract? And then you just fill out the last spot with Kevin Knox, who's averaging 27 points in the G League this month. Why wouldn't you do that? Right? Consolidation trade. Try to shorten the rotation by making a trade. Force Steve into doing that. Fenix says, Steve Kerr and Quinten Post and Gui Santos, they have my trust. It's just a question of once we're healthy and JK and Draymond are back, are there minutes? Please tell me he's joking. In regard to what bit? As in, like, those guys might not play when Draymond and JK are back? Well, like, Draymond and JK have to play. So, like, I don't know. Ghost says, and Dre would either get the best swing. All Moody has to do is switch and contain, which he's been doing better. GSW says, Steph, Wiggs, JK, Dre, and Post. That's the lineup I like it. I like that lineup. I'm just not sure Post is going to be starting at the end of this season. So, I don't know. GSW says, Dre needs to be a starter. Cornelis says, Moody should get a real chance of starting at the 2 guard. He's been balling out. He deserves that chance to win it. Tend to agree with the current injury issues. Like, I just don't think GP2 and Buddy Hield should be like, why should those guys be starting over Moses Moody? I think I'm with you. Give him the opportunity based on what the rotation looks like right now and the injuries that the Warriors are facing. Berserk says, yeah, but what happens when there's 2 good guards like a Fox and a Malik Monk? Monk torture Moody on every drive. But the alternative is, I think the whole point is where the alternative is Buddy Hield. Like, is he keeping anyone in front of him or doing anything? He blocked Josh Giddey today. Great, fantastic. Still not a plus defender. GSW says, I'm going to crash out if I see another Buddy Hield start. Yeah. Rough. I can't believe the Warriors had such a good offensive performance and Buddy Hield. This is great. This is what I've been clamoring for, been asking for months. The Warriors had a great offensive performance and Buddy Hield did sweet bugger all. I love it. I've been so disappointed with how reliant the Warriors have been on Buddy Hield and his production and, this record of, the 10-0 when he scores 18 points. I don't care. I don't want him to score 18 points because it shows that the Warriors are too reliant upon him. So I'm glad that the Warriors had a massive game offensively and Buddy Hield stunk it up still. He stunk it up again. I'm very happy about it. Legit. No sarcasm. AAA says Olynyk and Chris Boucher for GP2, Looney and Buddy Hield would be great for us. I don't think you need both Olynyk and Chris Boucher. You don't need both of those guys. John says Buddy Hield is really unplayable at this point. We've seen enough. Yeah, probably. Ghost says, I mean, Berserk, we played Buddy Hield against them, actually started. I mean, he shouldn't be getting a crack at those guards. Moody's the better option if you don't go with the big lineup. Connor says, Slow-mo, Buddy, Pods, and GP2 should be on the trading block. I'm not saying I don't think Pods should be, because you'd be trading him at real low value. Like, he's just had not a great season. He's just been out for 12 games. You'd be selling low on Brandon Pajemski. And the other thing you got to think about with a guy like Pods is he's also under contract for the next 2 years at like $8 or $9 million. Like, in today's CBA with the aprons and stuff, and like you got a big Kuminga contract incoming, those rookie deals are really important. Really important. It's why, like, I just would not trade. Like, Trace Jackson Davis would not be a trade candidate. I would not be trading Trace Jackson Davis under any circumstances. Okay, obviously I would if there was some amazing player, but like compared to like his normal, we understand his value isn't necessarily huge, but his value in terms of his contract is extraordinary, and it's kind of similar with Pods. But Slow-mo, Buddy, GP2, you're probably right, and I think I'd add Loon to that conversation as well. Berserk Mark says, I agree that we need a consolidation trade and make our top end talent better. Cam Johnson or another good two-way player. Yeah. I just like Cam Johnson. It sounds like Brooklyn want 2 first-round picks. I'm not sure the Warriors are going to do that for Cam Johnson. Guy says, Buddy literally gives effort, but he's going to get the opposing team in rhythm with his incapabilities on defense and offense, man. Berserk Monk says, don't even get me started on Buddy Bricks. He 100% needs to be in that consolidation trade. Nice $8 million salary thrown in. Well, he did actually get a mention from Slater earlier today, who jumped on, was it FanDuel TV or whatever it is? Anthony Slater, the Athletic, jumped on and said, talking about trade speculation, potentially GP2 and Looney's expiring contracts, obviously. Mentioned Schroeder as an expiring contract, which I still think that shouldn't go under the radar as well. I think that's a possibility. Although you kind of need to get a backup point guard in the trade. So what about the one I've proposed that I published on Blue Man Hoop earlier today? What about Vucevic and Kobe White? And Kobe White can be this, like, maybe now defensively as a 2 guard next to Steph. Okay, you got some problems. But what if you had like Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Green, Vooch, and then Kobe White was like your 6th man? Because you could actually get to that. Like, they make a combined $32 million. You can get to that with like Schroeder, GP2, Looney, and Buddy Hield, and you get like Vooch, Kobe White. Obviously, you're giving up probably a first-round pick, maybe even 2 in that, because Kobe White's pretty good. Do you give up like those 4? Do you give up those 4 guys, GP2, Looney, Buddy Hield, and Schroeder, for Vucevic, Kobe White, and they throw in Javon Carter or Torrey Craig in there as well? Because that's the salaries work on that, and the Warriors give up a pick or 2, possibly. GSW says, although Post has little NBA experience, I'd still take his impact over TJD and Looney and give him a start. It's hard to disagree based on this game, but this is also one game, and I don't want to put too much pressure on him too early. Ghost says, I'm not trading Pods. Says, Buddy, GP2, Loon, Kyle, I'm sorry, what can we get? Call up everyone, every GM. I don't care how many seconds, get an impact player with size. Gamer FTP says, been clamoring for Knox and Post long since JK went down. Finally glad Post at least gets a nod. Yeah, Knox is interesting to me because, and I've talked about him previously based on, what he did in Summer League, and then him obviously being on the training camp roster before being cut. Okay, first 6 years in the NBA, disaster. Draft bust, right? Biggest thing for me that I've spoke about was that guy just has never been on a competent NBA team. Like, he's always been on bad teams. Whether it was like the Knicks, obviously, where he got drafted, the Pistons twice. I think he was on the Pistons twice. Portland were really bad when he was there. Like, just put him in a competent team. I'm not even saying the Warriors are good. They're like a 500 team. But like a 500 team is way better than what he's had in the past. He's averaging 27 points a game in the G League, over 50% from the floor, 8 rebounds a game. He I think the need for him has lessened now based on what I've seen Gui do in the last few games. But that's the guy. It's like, okay, he's 6'7", 6'8" with size, can shoot the ball, can score. Again, that's kind of what the Warriors need. I do think if there's a consolidation trade and it's like a 3-for-1, then the two, like you're looking to fill out your roster after that, the two main ones, like Quinten Post, two-way to a standard, has to be done. And I think Kevin Knox, if the Warriors are looking to go sign a guy to fill out their roster, I think he's probably numero uno, I'd imagine. Cornelius says, and Moody's shooting better than Buddy and driving to the rack, getting fouls and makes right passes. I understand what you're saying about not moving Pods, but he can't be getting 36 minutes over Moody. Well, he's not. Pods is not going to get 36 minutes over him. I'd be surprised if Pods plays more than 30 minutes a game, where the Warriors have a reasonable rotation again this season. Like he played. What did he play in this game? And did he play 21 or something? Yeah, 21 minutes. That's probably about right, I think. Berserkman says, I think Cam Johnson would go for Warriors 2027 first round pick plus the salary fillers. Possibly. Yeah, you say that the 27 pick would be very valuable. Yeah, any Warriors pick could be pretty valuable based on Steph being 36. Douglas says, we're not a contender this year, nor can we do anything at the deadline to make us so, but let's at least make it interesting and play the young guys. If we can consolidate vet salaries, we should do it. Yep, that's fair. Gamer FTP says, after Kerr let Plowden go and sent Knox to the G League, kept forcing 3-4 guard lineups, Warriors play bigger with only 2 guards is success. Ghost says, I don't think the Bulls give up Kobe White. Yeah, me neither, but there's been some speculation about it. They're going to ask for a first. Yeah, like you'd have to give up a first, but maybe that's kind of a building block where the Warriors don't want to give up a first of Vucevic and the Bulls don't want to take seconds. So it's like, okay, what about we give you a first and a couple of seconds for Vuce and Kobe White? I still think Chicago will probably say no, but anyway. Douglas says they will ask for multiple firsts or a combo of that and at least Pods. Oh, it's also depending on like the protections you put on those picks as well. Like, should the Warriors give up a first of Vucevic? Well, they shouldn't give up an unprotected first, but if it's like a top 20 protected first, then sure. And that's the thing with some of these trades is like giving up 2 second-round picks is probably more valuable to the team that's receiving them than like a top 20 protected first-round pick. So, Pods at 20 minutes is ideal, thanks, says Gamer FTP. Yeah, I think that's about the mark. What did Schroeder play? Schroeder played 20 minutes. I think Schroeder might be back down to about 20 minutes now from here on out as well. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the rotation once they're... I mean, it's really interesting now, really, but like particularly when Draymond and Kuminga come back. Berserk Monk says, Slow-Mo does have value. Defensive big wing, 6'9", always hold value. Just Kerr doesn't play him. Yeah, I've said before in relation to like if they trade him, if you're the team taking on Kyle Anderson, then you could talk yourself into like rehabilitating his value a bit to a point where then a contending team, you could on-trade him and get something for him. Go says, but Pods is good though. It just needs to be better balanced with the two and can honestly play a lot of their minutes. Says if you get Vooch and get someone like Lonzo for selling lower and having to not give up more draft capital young players, I would do it. I don't mind the idea of Lonzo Ball. But Lonzo makes 20 million. So all of a sudden you get into 40 million. It's very hard to get to 40 million without giving up Wiggins. And you're obviously not doing that. Or Draymond. Gamer FTP says, Buddy, Dennis, and GP2 on the trade block, please. Can even use Looney as a plus and slow-mo if we have to. Yep. Connor says, I think if Santos can give us these kind of games and Post can too, and Steve gets a rotation right, I believe we got Steph and one good trade with slow-mo, GP2, and Buddy, we might have a shot. Shot at what? We're not winning the championship. Look, I don't want to end this on a negative note, but the one thing I will say is like Gui Santos and Quinten Post had great games. Okay, they're also not going to be the difference. As much as the Warriors need that kind of player, those guys at this point of their careers are not going to be the differences between, this is a 500 team, and now all of a sudden, look at Gui Santos and Quinten Post, like this team's going to be a legit deep playoff threat. That's not going to be the case. So as exciting as it is, we still have to limit the expectations a little bit on what this actually means for the team. And so that's why I'm not looking at these guys and saying, okay, well, we don't need Nikola Vucevic because we've got Quinten Post. Now, I don't think Vucevic necessarily makes that much of a difference either, But I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't be taking myself out of trade discussions based on like these two guys that have had great performances over the last 24, 48 hours. Gamer of TP says there's no way where Buddy, Curry, GP2, and Dennis should be on the floor at the same time with Looney. There was a couple of times there were 3-guard lineups where I kept shaking my head. Douglas says I actually wanted Levine during the summer. He was low risk, high reward gamble. Bulls will give him away, but now I guess if you can get rid of all these salaries like Hill, GP2, etc., go for it. Yeah, Levine still makes over 40. Like if you can get a $30 million player with giving up 3 or 4 of these salaries, but you can't really get to 40. That's when you have to give up. I'm going to finish this up here. Last thing Go says, my best case scenario is I want the team to be competitive with what we have and hopefully scare a team in the playoffs or upset someone and have something to build on for next year. Gamer FTP says, honestly believe Warriors can be a playoff team with a coach that empowers the youth, not vets entitlement, no matter how bad they are playing. Curry's just special, man. Alrighty, I'm going to finish it up there. We've been going for an hour and 5 minutes, but this is what happens when Quinten Post and Gui Santos have these remarkable performances and then everything's just thrown up in the air. What are we doing with the rotation moving forward? What's happening before the deadline? All these different things. Thank you to all you guys that have commented. Thank you for the ongoing support. It's very much appreciated. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. Follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Thank you to all of you that are either watching this on replay or listening via the podcast feed as well. It's much appreciated. I better be going. The Warriors play the Lakers on Saturday, so I'll be back for another post-game live after that. Again, if there's any more trade stuff or anything significant involving the Warriors over the next 24 hours before that game against the Lakers, I'll be back on to do a podcast episode to cover all that. Otherwise, in the meantime, you can check out my writing work over on bluemanhoop.com as well. Thanks again, guys. Much appreciated.